A very warm welcome to the first episode of the new WWEA podcast, The World of Wind Power. I'm really excited that we start this new podcast today. My name is Stefan Gsänger. I'm Secretary General of the World Wind Energy Association, and we'll talk today with our President, Dr. Irfan Mirza. Irfan, are you looking forward to this episode as well?
Yes, Stefan. Good morning to all. Good afternoon and good evening, wherever it goes. Stefan, I think this is a great idea and really good to see the numbers which we are going to show to people today. So amazing progress of wind power around the world.
Yes. So we want to start this podcast, and in the future we will have guests who will speak about specific countries or specific companies, tell about their progress. But today we want to have a look at the global picture because it's now the time, beginning of the year 2024, that we are gathering the statistics, and we have preliminary statistics now. I think quite good idea now of how the wind markets developed, in particular in the year 2023. But before we start talking about this, let's talk a little bit about our association. So you were elected as the president a couple of months ago, but you've been working with World Wind Energy Association for many years. I think the first time that there was a contact was like 20 years or more ago. Maybe you just briefly introduce yourself. So you have a long background in wind power.
Yes. Thank you, Stephen. So I have been working in wind power for the last 20 years plus. Mainly, my home country is Pakistan. So I have been involved in introducing as we say, the modern wind turbine in Pakistan. I've worked for the government of Pakistan as well. Wrote the first renewable energy policy of Pakistan as well. And then together with World Wind Energy Association, I have first met you, Stephen, if you remember, I think in 2004.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's
A little bit more than 20 years. I think it was February
absolutely.
2004, yeah.
Yes, 2004 four or so, if my memory serves me right. You know, and so basically, it's a long association with World Wind Energy Association, and so I think I'm glad that I have been able to contribute whatever little bit through World Wind Energy Association around the world, and specifically in Pakistan as far as the wind turbines are concerned here.
Well, we will soon come back to that. Let's now explain our association was created in the year 2001, and we have members in more than 100 countries. We have board members which are representing all the continents, major, but also some of the smaller markets are part of the association. So we have a very broad network that then also, I think, makes it easier to support specific countries. Like, for example, when we talk about Pakistan, we were able to give some policy advice to the government of Pakistan, thanks to all this experience which our members do have.
Absolutely, and I think it's not only one time. I think it's a couple of times where World Wind Energy Association has supported Pakistan. We have been working as WWE in many countries, but just to give one example specific to Pakistan is that once it was initially when we gave the policy advice of what kind of a tariff we need to use, the cost plus, or feed-in tariff, and what kind of a tariff would be for this kind of a market. That was like, I remember in 2005, 2006, when you and the Prabir Magat visited Pakistan.
Or the founding president, yes.
Yeah, the former president, the founding president of our organization, what a wonderful person he was.
Yes. Indeed, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
we've been supporting, I remember also China 2004, actually. Preben and I traveled to first to Pakistan, then to China, and then we did this big conference there. So I think we contributed to the Chinese market growth. We contributed to many other countries as well. Now let's come to this global situation. How wind energy has developed over those years, and let's look a little bit back as well. I think that's really an very encouraging development. Of course, when we look at the global picture, we can say, of course, the first wind mill was used for electricity generation already in 1883. But what we have today started, let's say, in 1980. And at that time, the first windmills were operating in the United States, in California, and then some started in Europe. And now today, we just came to the latest installation numbers. It's more than 1 million megawatt. It's 1,047,000, if our preliminary figures are right, which were installed by end of the year 2023. If you look at back when we met for the first time, end of 2003, beginning 2004, it was around 40,000 megawatts. So you see from 40,000 within these 20 years, it's a 25-fold increase. That's amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it deserves a clap because it's the first time it crossed million uh, megawatts this year. So it's amazing progress, exponential growth, mind blowing.
We're covering now around 10% of the global electricity demand. And in some countries, I think Denmark is the leader now with even more than 50%. And it's quite good to see the strong growth, which, started, obviously in this century, in the 21st century. But then there was kind of some years where the growth was rather on the same level with 50 to 60 gigawatt of new capacity installed every year. But now 2023, it's kind of taking off. So we see for the first time, clearly well above more than 100,000 megawatt of new installed wind capacity. We were 2021 already close to that, but I think at that time there was some delay because of the COVID situation. Then last year there were some delays because of COVID, and then of course the war in Ukraine, which also has on the one hand, I think, encouraged governments to do more for domestic energy supply, but also interrupted some supply chains. But when you look at those 10 years back, that's very encouraging, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think the whole of the wind community, deserves a pat at the back. I think, because sitting in Pakistan, we see a greater challenge of climate catastrophe as well. So we need these green energies, and this wind power is actually, as you very rightly said, like 10% of the global electricity is coming from wind now. So this is a serious contribution, and we would definitely expect and anticipate that the more of this is going to come in future.
I think that was a good point. You just mentioned that climate change is really an important driver now because a country like Pakistan is really seriously suffering. So it's not a driver which is more kind of a luxury of people who just believe, oh, we need to do something nice for the environment, but it becomes an existential question as well, isn't it? I just remember the flood that you had in Pakistan. That's not that long ago.
Absolutely, this was a devastating kind of a floods, and the changing environments, and with the Himalayas and at the north of Pakistan, where we see this global warming effects. And if we see a little more rise of the temperature of the world, we'll see a lot of glaciers are going to melt, and which is going to be a serious impact in on countries like Pakistan. We are definitely among the top 3 countries which are going to be affected with the climate change. So for us, this is a seriously good thing happening, that we somehow would abate coal or other fossil fuel technologies and instead start using this wind.
And in addition, countries don't need to worry, where do I buy the gas? Or I think there are always problems now, shortages, gas, coal. Do we open a new mine? What does it mean for the people living there? And all these things we can solve with that as well. No?
Absolutely. And Stefan, as we were discussing a few days back as well, nobody can stop technology now, and this kind of a conscious now kind of efforts done by the world as well in general. So we think that a lot of renewable energy technologies are going to be dependent on wind as well in future. For example, people are talking about green hydrogen. For example, to make it green, we need green energy. So to make hydrogen green, we need green energy. Wind is one of the key drivers for that. And similarly, we see a lot of hybrid technologies coming. So I see wind as one of the key component in the renewable energy future of the world.
Yeah, we've had we did a study a few years ago where we came to the conclusion that wind could cover easily 40%, maybe even more, of the world's power demand, and this power will have a bigger share in transportation, for example, because of electric cars, etc. That underlines how important it is. And now we're already at 10%, and some countries are like Germany, the Netherlands, more than 30% of the power coming from wind. Denmark with more than 50%. So that becomes a reality. So it's not anymore just a vision, it's a reality.
Absolutely. So I think wind, along with definitely the solar in the last decade, the way solar, specifically the solar photovoltaics, the way they come up as well. So both these technologies, the wind and solar, they are really contributing towards the green future of the world.
Yeah. And then when we're looking at the countries which are at the moment leading, that's also, for me, on the one hand, it's kind of amazing to see how some countries are progressing, also encouraging to see. Now we'll look at the countries, and again, last year, China had such an exceptional role many people say without China, we can't save the world. And if we do anything in our country, it doesn't matter because China has to change. But they're changing so fast. China alone installed last year 75,000 megawatt of new wind turbines. That's more than the total capacity of my home country, Germany, which is number 3 on that table.
Too good. China is actually really, really taking a leap forward as far as this revolution of renewable energy, specifically wind as well. And also like the United States last year as well, Stephen.
Yeah. The US are, what is really interesting, some people expect that depends on certain political priorities, and let's say Republicans may be more against wind than Democrats, but in fact, even under the George W. Bush, Texas became the leader when he was the governor in Texas, became the leader in wind power. And although the United States last year slowed a little bit down, it's still the second strongest market. And then experts say that at the moment, this Inflation Reduction Act, which will encourage more investment, is now encouraging the investment that will happen in the next 1, 2, 3 years. So now United States, we have the preliminary figure of around 7 gigawatt. That's of course only 10% of China, but it's still substantial.
Yes, absolutely. China somehow has actually changed the overall dynamics, because you are talking about 10% of China about the US, but even if you combine all the countries, the rest of the world is still less than China, or I think less than half of the China. You were saying about China is like 2/3 of the rest of the world as far as
It's
population.
64% or so. The numbers are not yet the final ones, but it's 63, 64% of the world market of new turbines is we find in China. That is true. At the same time, we have a longer and longer list. I started personally collecting the data. That's more than 20 years ago, when we had, I think, 70 countries which are somehow using wind power. Now we are much more than 100, maybe 120 countries. And there is diversification, and also you see newcomers entering the market. So China, United States, Germany, and India, they are the top 4 countries. They've been the top 4 for many years. And then also Spain, United Kingdom, they've been also substantial markets. But suddenly Brazil is there. Brazil, which will probably soon take over, probably this year, the United Kingdom, is kind of the first market which is really big market, not on the northern hemisphere, but on the southern hemisphere. They installed last year, in 1 year, almost 5 gigawatt. That shows us that's not a northern topic. It's not a topic for industrialized countries, but Brazil is really showing us, and they already have a very high share of hydropower, that it's something that is for every country is the right way to go, and they can do it.
Absolutely, and as you are saying, the top 4 countries, I think Germany is there, since long, we have been there in the top 3-4 positions. And similarly, India. I think let's talk about India a little bit as well. India has actually done a wonderful job as far as the promotion of wind and the other renewable energy as well in Asia. I think they are the flag bearer for the last couple of decades at least. I've been seeing that. And one thing which I think Indians have done really good is that they have started manufacturing their turbines in their own countries. Putting up a manufacturing base in the country is actually really a wonderful thing, because then it creates job, it creates a lot of other opportunities as well. So that's all. I think we must commend what India has done over the last few years.
That's actually very interesting story, the Indian success story. And I'm sure we will do a separate podcast about India as well. Likewise for Pakistan, China. I think all the countries deserve that we talk about them, at least for this half an hour. But I think you're absolutely right. India was the first country, the so-called developing country, which established a wind industry. And I remember that it was a textile company, was what later became Suzlon. They bought wind turbines because they needed electricity. So it's again not for environmental reasons, but they needed electricity for their factories. And then they noticed, oh, that works so well. Let's make them by ourselves. And Suzlon became really a not only market leader, but I think it's really an important industry player in India nowadays. Then also entered other markets. That's a very important story. You're absolutely right.
Actually, I remember. You remember our World Wind Energy Conference in India? I think it was 2006 or something, where the president was chairing the concluding session, I believe, or inaugural or concluding. I don't remember.
It was the inaugural session, yes.
Yeah, it was the inaugural session, yes. And I just saw the picture yesterday somehow. I was scrolling my old pictures, and I have seen the picture of the whole WWEA board with the president of India.
Yeah, it was Dr. Abdul Kalam at that time, who made a statement in 2006, which still today we can be proud of, that he made that during our conference. It was really, really very encouraging. He said literally that renewable energy alone can ensure sustainable development. To hear that from a head of state at that time was really fantastic.
Absolutely. And he was a visionary. He was a visionary leader. He was a visionary general. So I think, yeah.
Yes, that's a
So,
nice thing. We have now really many good stories to tell from around the world. And when just to look at the overall picture, of course, it looks like which country has installed how much capacity. Then you see primarily China, you see the United States, Germany, Spain, UK, maybe now Brazil. But there are so many countries which are now very successful. There is, for example, Uruguay in South America, which also has a very high share of from wind power. It's also around 50%, of course, fluctuates a bit every year together with hydropower. Costa Rica, these countries are already making use of the synergies between wind and hydro in particular, and they ensure their energy supply from those non-polluting energy sources. They don't appear in the general public debate that often, but that is the nice thing. You have many nice stories now to tell and convincing stories.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I wanted also to ask you what you expect in the near and in the longer term future. I mean, you can start from Pakistan. We see that this year now 2023 was a strong year for the global industry to grow. I think Pakistan saw some growth in the previous years, not so much, but how is your perception in Pakistan, but also beyond that? Do you see now that that trend will become stronger for the next years to come? You also attended the UN Climate Change Conference, the COP28 in Dubai, and you got some, I think, also impression from there.
Yes, absolutely. So as far as the Pakistan is concerned, I think unfortunately we have a lot of other issues at this point in time than to concentrate on the development of wind power. And somehow the growth rates are, as far as the overall country growth is so low that we don't need much power at this point in time. And, the authorities and the utilities are discussing, when to add more power. But one thing is sure, whenever they are going to add more power, it is going to be the renewables. So this is one thing. The new government, very recently, couple of days back, there's a new government was in place, and there was strong statements about renewable energy. And they are saying, but whenever we are going to add the new power, this is going to be from renewable. So I think this is a great thing. As far as the rest of the world and the impression which I got from the COP28, so I think this trend definitely continues. So I would request people not to confuse with the overall final number, because as we were discussing, that final number depends mainly on the growth from the China at this point in time, like you said, 63-64% from China. But the rest of the world would definitely, and including China also, this trend is going to continue, because as I was saying, that more and more focus was on hybrid and the other renewables, and the wind is definitely going to be the strong part in the development of, for example, green hydrogen in the hybrid technologies like wind and solar combined, and even for batteries, which a lot of people are now saying that we may start using them. For example, one of the example from Pakistan is for peak loads and things like that. So even for that power, that this is going to be, we see the wind power is going to come in. So this is as far as I am concerned, that, and I have seen in the COP where, as an observer, World Wind Energy Association is an observer to the COP, that, and I have visited almost 50, 60 countries strong personally. So there's a lot of commitment towards renewable and wind power. So I see a strong growth coming in the next years.
You're right. I mean, we see also the solutions. So some people say, yeah, wind is not always the same, so this is a problem. But the solutions are now there. So it's not only the kind of traditional way of connecting wind and hydro power, which is for many countries easiest to connect because you can balance wind with hydro, and also wind and sun and hydro. Wind and sun always is often is complementary as well, which also is very good. Like Europe, you have more wind in winter, you have more sun in summer. But there's such encouraging examples. You spoke about batteries, and for me, really always amazing example is South Australia, which doesn't have much hydropower, unlike, for example, Tasmania, another Australian state. But they now install huge batteries. Now, just read again about a 2,000 megawatt hour battery. And they are planning with mainly wind and sun and batteries to be at 100% renewables in 2027. That's 3 years from now on. They were planning 2030, but now the government said we will achieve that earlier. And that means that we can show now, today, what the wind, together with the sun and some storage, can do, and how we don't need those scars and polluting sources anymore. That I find most encouraging, to have those stories.
Absolutely, Stephen. I think you gave an excellent example. And similarly, the storage, and then a lot of countries, are thinking. Obviously, it will take some time. This is not happening right now, but it will take some time. But maybe we replace a lot of fossil fuels with hydrogen as well. And when we talk about green hydrogen, I see a lot of role of wind energy in that as
Yes, that's true. That's the kind of longer term option that we will see, whereas things are now starting to move. Yeah, I think the one of the key points for me has always been also in the work for our association, to make sure that the people not only understand that, so that people supporting it because they see it's good for them. Because they don't see this as a burden, so that they now have to pay more for wind power than before for nuclear or whatever gas power, which is actually anyway a distorted, distracted way of perceiving the reality. That people who know, maybe they can even have a share in a wind farm, or they get lower energy prices, electricity bills, or, I mean, not to forget, of course, I'm in one of those industrialized countries with 100% penetration rate. In your country, there are some people who need access to electricity that can be provided with small wind turbines or so. How do you see this part of the kind of what we now call community engagement?
Yeah, I think this is in the coming days, in the future, and even we have examples in the past as well. And I'm very happy, and this is one of the reasons I have been associated since long. Rather, I can say from your point of view as well that we both are associated with this organization is because of this community engagement and community power. Because we believe here at WWEA, we believe that whatever this wind power should not be only for the investors, should not be only for the big companies. The people on the ground, should be benefited out of that. For most of the time, this we have this wind at certain areas in a country, in a specific country. In certain areas where there's a good wind blowing, and the community living there. So there are two type of activities we are doing with the people. One is the community. So community, we need that community should be benefited of that should say that okay, we should not, or we should not only just take their lands, put up the wind turbines, and then just say thank you to them and start giving them just a very small rental and say thank you very much. We are going. So we need to somehow involve them in the whole process, as you very rightly said. And the second part which we are doing is the awareness campaign, so that again you very rightly said that so that people should see why they are giving a little more for the renewable energy. What are the reasons why we are doing that? And by the way, little more is again, this is so called because there are a lot of subsidies even in our country, in a lot of Western countries as well, to the fossil fuels, to the nuclear and other technologies as well, which unfortunately are not available to renewables. So I think this community power, no company, no investor, this is what I believe in future can work without involving the communities in it. And this is what we know, this is what we always promote.
Mm. Yeah, I think that were wonderful final words. And I believe that with such kind of engagement, we really can get also the social momentum that we need for the still big task, because 10% wind power share, still 90% is not wind. Of course, there's some solar as well. But to come to that close to 100% renewables, we will need such strong support. It's been wonderful. Irfan, thank you very much. I think we had a very good conversation. I hope that our audience enjoys also getting some first-hand information from us. And with that, I look forward already to the next episodes when we hear about countries. And you and me will certainly talk again, at least about Pakistan and some other topics as well.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you very much. I also look forward, to hearing these WWEA podcasts from other countries as well. This is always informational. This is also a lot of interest, to listening how the experts think about their particular countries. And it's a very good initiative, and I must thank you for, for this initiative. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you so much. And with this, thank you to our audience. And we hope you enjoyed it and look forward to welcoming you for the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.